The Etank power station by Mfish has 4 different USB-C ports with 240 watts of combined power output, as well as 3 standard outlets. Keep in mind that Mfish did send me this device to try out and make a video on based on my collaboration terms, which means they had no say in the content of the video and they were not allowed to preview it. Let's get started. It is a very hefty device at around 2 pounds or 0.9 kilograms approximately. The grounded 3-prong power connection of this cable is flat, which is nice. The actual cable comes out of the top, which is unique. The cable is pretty flexible, feels good. It's relatively thin for what it is, and it does have braided sleeving. It does come with a Velcro tie for the power cable, so you can keep that nice and tidy. On the top of the device, there are 3 standard wall outlets, and then on the side of the device, you have 4 different USB-C ports of various specifications. Next to where the cable goes into the charging station, there is a touch-sensitive button that's going to let you turn on and off the power station as well as cycle the lighting. With the 3 standard power connections, it is an opaque plastic, and there is actual colored lighting inside. Using that touch-sensitive button, you can cycle through the different colors. It's a pretty cool little addition. The case appears to be plastic. As far as I can tell, it's not really cold to the touch. There are what look like metal screws on the top. They state that this uses GaN or GaN technology, which is Gallium Nitride. I don't really know the details of that type of specification for charging technologies, but at least know it's in here. As I mentioned before, there are 4 different USB-C ports of various specifications. Let's go over all the details of these USB-C ports. It depends on how many ports you're using and which specific ports. For C1, which is the most advanced, most powerful port, you do 5, 9, 12, or 15 volts at 3 amps. It's also capable of 20 or 28 volts at 5 amps, which is a maximum of 140 watts of output. So that's your most advanced, highest specification single port on this device. With the C2 port, it can do 5, 9, 12, or 15 volts at 3 amps, in addition to 20 volts at 5 amps for 100 watts maximum output. With the C3 port, you can do 5 or 9 volts at 3 amps, 12 volts at 2.5 amps, 15 volts at 2 amps, 20 volts at 1.5 amps for 30 watts maximum. With the C4 port, you can do 5 or 9 volts at 3 amps, 12 volts at 2.5 amps, 15 volts at 2 amps, 20 volts at 1.5 amps for a maximum of 30 watts. When you get into the combined outputs, this is going to reach up to 240 watts maximum, and then you can say, for example, C1 and C2, you can do a maximum of 140 on C1 and 100 on C2 for that absolute max of 240 watts. With C1 and C3, you're going to do 140 watts plus 30 watts potentially. You know, it goes down the line. There are a lot of specifications for this based on the combinations. If you want to do 3 ports at the same time, for example, C1, C2, and C3, this is going to lower the output on the first port. So you're going to have 100 watts plus 100 watts plus 30 watts maximum. If you want to use all of the USB-C ports at once, it's going to be 100 watts, 100 watts plus 20 watts, totaling, again, the 240 watt maximum. Considering it has standard power outlets on the top, you're going to be combining the USB output plus those for a maximum of 10 amps up to 1,250 watts. Considering the advanced high voltage, high wattage power capabilities of some of the ports on this charging station, I think that the cables are very important. I personally only have cables that go up to 100 watts maximum, and I do see some potential compatibility issues with specific cables and specific devices and specific ports. I only have cables that go up to 100 watts potentially, and it might have some other weird compatibility issues with my specific cables. A few examples of issues that I had were related to my phone and using the more advanced cables, but either my phone or the cable was incompatible with the specific C1 and C2 ports for whatever reason. I don't know exactly why, but I would suspect it's my cable. I used a very basic USB-C to USB-C cable and connected it to any port, and it worked fine with the phone. So I really do think cables matter a lot. I had the same situation with a portable light. So if I use a standard USB-C to USB-C cable, it was just fine. But those cables did work with some of my other devices that specifically had power delivery. So the Nikon Z5, my various Lano chargers the GoPro Hero 9 Black, all of those work just fine at the advanced power delivery, higher wattage capabilities of the charger and the cables. I did use a watt meter to measure power draw from the wall, and I was able to get around 150 watts maximum in combination with all of the USB-C ports and also things connected to the standard wall connections on the top of the power station. I don't have any really high spec, high power delivery, high wattage devices. In that case, you'd probably be using laptops or some type of large batteries, potentially with those high specifications, high voltages, and all that to really push this device. At least at the moment, I don't have anything that's that advanced and power hungry. With just pulling power from the USB-C ports, probably getting around 80 to 100 watts, which is still quite a bit. I did let the devices charge for a fair amount of time while I was testing it. Didn't have any issues. The power station did warm up, but it worked just fine with all of that stuff connected to it. Let's go over some of the aspects of this device I think could be improved upon. First, I would like some sort of display on the side or something that would give me specific specifications of what is being used per port, or if there's some type of issue, because I wasn't sure what was going on with my phone and specific USB-C cables, or I was having some sort of communication or power draw issue or something. It just would have been nice if this had some sort of display to tell me what's going on. I figured it out though. I used different cables, used different ports, and I was able to charge successfully. I'd like more USB ports in general. 4 is sufficient, but I wouldn't mind lower spec ports so I could charge more devices on this directly instead of adding additional things on the top. I wish there was more configurability to the lighting. It's a very cool feature. It's a nice little addition, and it would be nice if I could do a little bit more with it. When the power station is connected to the wall but it is off, it's still using a little bit of power to make sure that the touch sensitive button is working and such. It's about half a watt, maybe a little bit more than half a watt. So at least keep in mind it's going to use some power continuously. Let's go over various things of this device I think are great. First off, the touch sensitive button should hopefully work well for a long amount of time. If you have a mechanical button, maybe that would wear out at some point, but with the touch sensitive button, it's simple, it works. While I was not personally able to test the high wattage charging capabilities of this device, it is nice that I'll have that capability in the future. So if I get a laptop that is capable of drawing like 100 watts or something, this would be great to use with that first port. I like the combination of USB-C ports plus the standard outlets. So in situations where I have a battery charger that's an older one for some other camera, or just I want to charge multiple batteries at once, I can connect it directly to the top of the charging station, no issues. And that the way that they're configured, the angle downwards to the side of the charging station, and they have a fair amount of room between each port, so you can put something decently wide into those standard outlets. The power station shouldn't slide around. It's got a fair amount of weight to it, 2 pounds in total approximately, but if you exclude the cable, it's still pretty heavy, so it's probably not going to be moving around accidentally, which is great. I've had a bunch of power strips that are pretty light plastic, and it's hard for them to just stay in one place. The cable included with the power station is very nice. It's easy to bend and place as needed. It has braiding to it, and the actual connector for the wall is flat. Overall, it's a very interesting combination of features and functions. That was the Mfish Etank power station. Again, keep in mind that they did send me this to try out and make a video on based on my collaboration terms, which means they had no say in the content of the video. Scott of Tech, I suppose. Thanks.